Hey everyone, I am Elizabeth Sherman from Total Health by Elizabeth, and I am a health coach. What I do is I help my clients lean into healthier habits by making things a little bit easier, so you don't have to immediately overhaul your life in order to make it healthier. You can actually do things very easily and be successful in the process. So, when we talk about habits, there's one thing that's actually really important to me, and it's something that I thought about when I was much younger, when I was in my 30s, and I was like, I don't want to do anything that is not sustainable. Meaning, when I looked into the future and I thought about future Elizabeth, and this is a theme that keeps popping up for me recently, is thinking about the future version of me. So when I think about future Elizabeth, is future Elizabeth going to be able to do these habits? So 60-year-old Elizabeth, what does she look like? What is she doing on a daily basis? And is this thing that I'm starting to do to help my health, supposedly, is that going to be something that future Elizabeth is going to do? So, like, for instance, calorie counting. So I was like, as a 60-year-old woman, do I want to be logging my food into MyFitnessPal? And the answer came back with no, I don't want to do that. And so I kind of had to figure out, well, so how do I make my life happen? How do I get my goals? How do I get that version of me, future Elizabeth, 60-year-old version of Elizabeth, and have me be at the weight that I'm going to be at, doing the things that I want to be doing, but not be logging my food every day? So as far as sustainability goes, I do think that there are some things that you actually have to do for a short period of time in order to get you to that goal. So that was the other thing. So is this thing that I'm doing going to get me to my goal? And if it's not going to get me, is it sustainable? And if it's not sustainable, is it going to get me to my goal so that then I can start doing something sustainable later? So the one thing that I teach my clients to do on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, is to plan. I know that doesn't sound very exciting, is it? But it's totally not sexy, but it works. And so there are a few things, and your level of planning is actually going to be determined by your level of busyness. So remember that if you are in the middle of having young kids and you need to be super organized, well, then your planning probably has to be pretty detailed. I used to be a lot more detailed in my planning when I lived in Austin, Texas, because I had a busier life. But now that I'm in Mexico, I have a little bit more free time. So there are some things that I don't do anymore, but I used to do. Like, for instance, I don't pre-cook any of my meats. I don't pre-cook any of my vegetables or anything like that. I will buy occasionally pre-cooked like rotisserie chicken because I think that that's fantastic and it's easy to throw on a salad. But I generally don't do any pre-cooking. The other thing that I will do is if I'm making chicken, for example, for one meal, I might make extra so that I can have that for lunch the following day or the following couple of days. So I don't generally pre-cook any of my meals. I don't pre-measure and pre-weigh and all of that stuff and pre-plate stuff into Tupperwares either. However, again, if you struggle with making good decisions as far as lunches go, that may be something that you need to do. At this point, I have a little bit more flexibility in my life. So I can go to my refrigerator and not have to, I can already make, good decisions right there. I don't have to take that food with me to another location. But again, there were times when I did, pre-measure out all of my Tupperwares and I had them all lined up, and I would just take one and bring it with me to work that day. But what I do is I schedule my meals on a weekly basis. So, and this is actually still true. It's a little bit different from when I was living in the States to where I am now in Mexico, just because when I lived in the States, I used to do it all on the weekends. And now I go to a farmer's market, which is actually very close to me, and that place, the farmer's market is only on Wednesdays. So I can't do that all on the weekend. So anyway, that's why my schedule is a little bit different now. But anyway, I do schedule my meals, and one of the things that I do when I'm scheduling out my meals for the week is first I go through my refrigerator and I look to see what's in there that is going to spoil. And based on that information, then I will try to use up those ingredients early on in the week, okay? Kind of makes sense because I don't like to waste food. But then I'll look at my schedule and Gary's schedule, and we'll look to see if we have any meetings that are running late in the day. Do we have any commitments that are in the evening? Because then that will automatically determine how much time we have to prepare our food. Or if one of us is not going to be home, then it doesn't really make sense to make a huge dinner for just one of us. So look at your schedule for the week for your family and try to determine how many, how much time you have to prep your food. Then also, and I learned this one the hard way, is look at the weather. So like if in the spring and fall when the weather is changing a lot, you don't want to have to make a stew and then have the weather change so that all of a sudden it's like 80 degrees outside and you're like, I had stew planned, but now it's like freaking too hot. So do check the weather out. On the flip side of that, you don't also want to make a salad if it's going to be cold and rainy. So think about what the weather is going to be like as far as the upcoming week is. And then the other thing that I like to consider when I'm planning my meals is I do things that take more prep time and focus earlier in the week, and then as the week goes on, my meals become funner. And what I mean by that is like later on in the week, I'll schedule tacos or burgers or something like that that's just a little bit more casual, that like we just can eat with our hands versus eating with a fork and knife. And it just seems to make things a little bit lower key, because at the end of the week, you probably don't want to have to make something, that's really involved. So think about what your energy level is during the week and, whether you're going to even want to make those meals. So, the other thing is, after you've planned that out, and let's say that last week you did this same thing, and you have like 2 or 3 meals left over. So that's fine, but then what you want to do is you want to think about, why is it that we have those meals that are left over? Did I just not want to cook those things? Did I not really feel like eating that? Or did something come up during the week and we just couldn't make it work? So did something happen? Like, did we have a last minute meeting, or, whatever, things come up? Did we get invited out to dinner that prevented me from making that? And so what you start to notice then in doing these these autopsies of the previous week and how your planning went, is you start to see patterns. And why that's important is, again, you don't want to waste any food, especially if you're planning. So what that allows you to do is say, okay, well, I know that we have, 4 nights that we're going to be home, but the past 3 weeks, we've only been making 3 of those meals. So maybe next week I should only plan 3 of those meals so that I don't have to waste anything. So anyway, those are just some of my tips for what you can do and how I help my clients in setting up their plans for their families and their lifestyle. So, it's one of those things that actually helps you get closer to your goals. And this goes along with working out as well. Put it in your calendar. Look at your calendar and figure out when can you make it happen. So again, planning is key. It is so important if you want to succeed in your goals and if this is something new to you. Again, once you have this habit under control, then maybe you can back off a little bit in your planning. But when it's a new goal or when it's a new habit, you need to plan it in there, otherwise you're going to forget. So anyway, that's all I have for you today. My name is Elizabeth Sherman, Total Health by Elizabeth. I'm a health coach, and if you have any questions for me, I would love to answer them in my next video. Just go ahead and type them in the comments or send me a message, and I will talk to you all later. Bye.